What's happening, guys, and welcome back to the channel. For today's video we're going to be checking out the brand new Dr.Wu movie collector MC-03 Little Monster, also known as Transformers Revenge of the Fallen Wheelie. Now I picked mine up over at Showz, so for those interested I'll be sure to pack a link down in the description box below. And as far as I can tell, this is probably the best we're going to get to a Studio Series core scaled version of the character, at least for the foreseeable future, and it's very nicely done. So here we have Wheelie as he comes packaged in his tiny little remote control monster truck alt mode, and this guy is so small. It definitely took me by surprise. It's kind of cute to see just how tiny it is, and very well engineered. I mean, from certain angles you literally wouldn't believe it could transform, so thought that was kind of sweet. And even from the back it looks a little better when in comparison to that enormous deluxe version we saw for the original 2009 toy line. So as we just take a look very quickly at the details, love the paintwork we have along the side. For something which is so small, there are no paint blemishes, which is really nice. So like the way that looks. We get these massive thick wheels, which as you would expect allow him to roll out along the ground in pursuit of the Shard and Megan Fox. And I believe this is a vehicle mode we see in Transformers 2, 3, and I believe very briefly in Transformers 5. I actually completely forgot this guy was even in the last night, but really cool. I mean, as you can see, just so tiny. So let's bring out a few comparisons. So first of all, here we have him alongside the Dark of the Moon core class Laserbeak, Bumblebee movie Shockwave. So again, very tiny. For those of you who thought these Hasbro cores were small, just wait until you see how tiny this guy is even in robot mode. Here he is alongside Ravage. So again, quite tiny. And then finally for alt mode, the Dark of the Moon Deluxe class Bumblebee. So more or less a mainline scaled figure, and again, super small. Of course, I believe if this was to be accurate to the movie, it should be a lot smaller here in alt mode. But in robot mode, I think it's definitely going to look, for the most part, pretty sweet. And now for transformation. To be honest with you guys, this thing is actually quite tricky, and I'd say the biggest issue that I have with it is because it is so small, certain things are just a little too fiddly. So to kickstart things off, what you're going to want to do is basically take these side pieces here, just detach those away from the main body, so we can extend that up. We can then detach these silver pieces if they haven't done so already, and just extend that out. Do the same here for this side, so try your best to disengage this blue piece first of all. So just unhook that, hinge it upwards, and then we can take this silver fender piece and then detach it and bring this section here all the way down. Very stiff joints, which I like. Definitely thought that this was going to be quite a loose and floppy mess, but no, everything does feel pretty decent. We can then flip out these tiny little heel spurs, take these little silver pieces and fold them to the back, which will basically create the heels for the robot mode, just so that he doesn't fall over. And do the same here for this side. Next up, you're going to want to come here to the back, take these sections here, untab them and pull it forwards, and essentially these are the eyes. So we can shift these pieces up, and that is such a nasty looking head sculpt, actually quite freaky as well. We can then take these pieces here, just detach the arms as you would expect, rotate these sections here down, just like that, come around to the back and take the entire windshield of the vehicle mode, hinge it upwards and then rotate it so that it's in the center, just to allow for a bit of clearance. As now what we're going to do is arch these sections here back on both sides. What we can then do is take this silver piece, and it is actually on a hinge joint. This is going to be brought forwards and will click into place, and then we can bring the hips down. So at the moment you should be left with something which is looking along the lines of this. We can then again come around to the back, take this, just get that out of the way. There are some tiny little slots that these tabs are going to peg into, so snap that in there. And do the same for this side. Now I actually thought that these two tabs were going to peg into these slots, but sadly they don't appear to do that. So essentially they are just going to rest there into place for now. And here comes the most challenging part about the conversion, and it's basically splitting the wheels. So to do this, this grey part is actually going to push inwards, and it should break up the wheel. Now it's very difficult to do, so we just pull this section here out, just like that, and then what that will allow us to do is begin articulating this grey section. So we can bring this here all the way up, just like this, come to this side and do the exact same. So get your fingernails in there, or perhaps a tiny little flathead screwdriver, and just try your best to separate these two components. I really wish there was a slightly easier way to transform these, but sadly, at least as far as my experience has gone, this is the easiest way to do it. And once you kind of get it a little bit split, we can then take this shoulder joint and just rotate it upwards like that. take the thumb, hinge it forwards if it hasn't done so already. Just get everything neatened up. And there we have Little Monster transformed up into his robot mode. And that definitely was a pretty monstrous transformation for such a little guy. So again, definitely living up to the title. Now, as we jump into the details, here we have that nasty looking Decepticon head. I mean, this guy really was pretty ugly, I'm not going to lie. So certainly monstrous. Really like the sculpt work though. We get loads of metallic silver. I do believe they've literally just brought out a battle damage redeco of this with the kind of burnt out blue eye and a few weathered paint apps, which had I known they were going to come out with that, I probably would have waited for it, but this is the clean version and still doesn't look too bad. Decent eyebrow detail, like the way that looks, and just overall very accurate to how the CGI design appeared in the movie. So I thought that was pretty successful, especially considering just how small he is. We actually do get the wheels here for the shoulders, some very nice internal blue details, which I thought was kind of sweet, and these silver sections which stick out to the top. Some nice sculpt work and paint here for the side of the hands, especially for the fingers. They look really great, and a little bit of backpack kibble, but to be fair, nothing that is too bad, and the legs are very clean. I mean, there's literally no excess junk on these at all, and I do like how we can keep the heel spurs out or actually compress these for if you want to have him rolling along the ground, much like we saw in the movie. Now, articulation-wise, the eyes here, or the eyebrows, I guess you could say, can be hinged up and down. I mean, he was a very emotive character in the movie, so you can have him looking super menacing and evil, or slightly more sad and puppy dog-esque. It's completely up to you guys. We do get some nice ball joints here out of the shoulders, so these can hinge downwards. We can also utilize these shoulder joints, but for some strange reason, this silver fender piece does move with the shoulder. I'm not sure if I'm doing something wrong, so that is a little annoying, I'm not going to lie. I wish this could have just stayed in one place, but we do get a decent hinge joint here at the actual shoulder joint. We get an elbow joint. We get a tiny bit of finger articulation here out of the thumb. Very surprisingly, an actual waist joint, which I thought was kind of cool. We don't need this for transformation, so pretty neat. And as you guys can see, decent detail. Kind of looks like a Frenzy, which I thought was kind of sick. We do get some nice ball joints here out of the hips, some hinge joints due to transformation, hinge joint here out of the knee, and a hinge joint for the ankle. And again, that tiny bit of pivot that we got out of the heel spurs. No ankle pivot, but to be fair, I don't really think this is a character which is going to need it. And there are no accessories included with this guy besides the collector's card, which was something we saw with their version of Scalpel and Mohawk. So some decent product shots, and as we come around to the back, we do get some statistics, and sadly he ranks very lowly, so definitely don't bank on him if you're going to go into battle against the Autobots. Now, as we jump into a few comparisons, here we have Little Monster alongside the Studio Series core Laserbeak, and pretty decent scale. Like I said previously, I think this is the closest we're going to get to seeing this character in the Studio Series for quite a long time, so if you don't want to wait for Hasbro, then I think this is probably our best option yet. Here's Bumblebee movie Shockwave, Ravage, Human Alliance One Man Alone, and I tried my best to find the Human Alliance Warrior Goddess, or whatever he calls her in the movie, but just cannot find her anywhere, so I guess for the time being, Wheelie is just going to have to admire John Turturro. Studio Series Deluxe Class Bumblebee. Now, the scale definitely isn't perfect. He should be more along the lines of human scale, but like I said, I think this is probably the best we've seen so far. Studio Series Voyager Optimus Prime. And then finally, I thought this would be quite a fun one, the Human Alliance Skids and Mudflap. And is it just me, or does Wheelie look like the love child between these two? The head sculpts and the designs just in general are very similar, but this scale I don't think works out too badly. I mean, these guys were definitely the smallest of the Autobots from the Transformers 2 movie, and to be fair, weren't that much bigger when in comparison to the humans, so I actually think this could work out pretty nicely. And wrapping up on this review for the Dr.Wu MC-01 Little Monster. Overall, I really like this guy. I think he's super fun, super enjoyable, pretty well engineered for a figure which is so tiny, and he has a really sick looking remote control truck mode and a really awesome robot mode. I think probably the best version of live action movie Wheelie we've seen today, and is this a character Hasbro is likely to pick up in the future? Honestly, I don't think so. I think Wheelie is kind of in that Skids and Mudflap limbo. Will he be made? Won't he be made? I guess only time will tell, but at the moment this is the best version of the character, at least in my opinion, that scales the nicest with Studio Series figures, despite perhaps not being 100% perfect. I don't think he looks too out of place, and decent materials and some alright articulation, so I like him quite a bit. If you're a fan of the character and you want to fill out that entire Transformers 2 character lineup, then this is a decent figure to pick up, but it is a little expensive. I think this retails for around $26 to $30, but when you bear in mind that the average core class now goes for about $13 and this guy is way better built, better engineered, and has better articulation, honestly, I think overall it weighs up to be pretty decent. I'd love to get your thoughts down in the comment section below. If you are looking to add this to the collection, definitely check out the link in the description, and until my next review, I'll see you then. Thanks for watching.